All right, so welcome everybody to this session, Technology for Vocab Practice and Assessment. You can get the slideshow at the short link you see at the top of the screen here, bit.ly/capital NEO lowercase vocab. I'll put the link also in the chat for our people that are here live with us. As always, if you watch these recorded webinars, a lot of these slideshows have a bunch of pictures and links and stuff in them. So having a copy of the slideshow for yourself is always a good thing. So welcome everybody. My name's Dan Neeson. I'm a technology integration specialist at NeoNet. Here's my email. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. It's the best way to get a hold of me. If you're here live with us, go ahead and give a click on that sign in here button and go ahead and sign in. And again, the short link for this session today is bit.ly/capital NEO lowercase vocab. And let's go ahead and dive in. So here's our to-do list for today. We'll start by looking at the Pear Deck vocab factory. We'll also look at Nearpod matching and the collab board. So two ways we'll take a little bit of a dive into those. We're not going to go crazy deep into them. Then we'll also talk a little bit about quizzes for vocab practice and assessment. The first couple things are really good for vocab practice. Quizzes is particularly good for like assessment. But you can actually do both with quizzes. But then also we'll talk about graphic organizers in Google Slides. And then we'll just kind of list off a few others that you can do for vocab practice and assessment. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into Pear Deck. So our first one here is Pear Deck, and if you've used Pear Deck before, you're probably used to it and know it as that's the thing that can make my slideshows into a more interactive thing where I can have kids answer questions or draw on things, all that stuff. One thing you may not be used to is the flashcard factory. It lets you practice vocab. And it actually has students create flashcards, vocab-focused flashcards for themselves. This is kind of like a vocab practice tool, but it's gamified. And the way it works is students are going to be split into two teams and given vocab words. Then they're tasked with making a shared flashcard set. And they'll be asked to make drawings of the vocab word, like an example of a drawing of the term, and give an example of an example sentence using the vocab word. They're going to see the definition and the term. It's their job basically to kind of extend upon that and make a little drawing and give a sentence example. And the teacher acts as the flashcard factory foreman, where you'll decide if the flashcards that students are making are acceptable or not, if they kind of meet that point. And if you can accept or reject them, and at the end you're left with this flashcard set in another tool called GimKit. You don't have to have an account for that or anything. There's no extra signing in. It gives you a link at the end. And you'll just be left with that link, and you can give students that link. Students will see it themselves, so they can use that link over and over again to practice their vocab words. It's like a digital flashcard set. All right. Here on slide number 5 is a link to a page that shows you how to set all this stuff up without going into a crazy amount of detail here. This page here that's linked on slide 5 for you. This just goes over the whole overview of how to set up a flashcard factory activity. We'll take a quick glance over everything, and we'll take a look at how it works as well. But that page just goes through all the details if you get stuck. All right, again, teachers are going to create or import sets of vocab terms and definitions. So you're giving them the term and its definition. And this is kind of the page that you'll see. And again, it's the student's job to kind of expand upon it in this activity. Another thing you can also do, if you have like a lot of definitions, if you have a lot of vocab to go over, you can actually import a vocab set from a Google Sheet. In one column, you just type the definitions in one, the terms rather, in one column, and the column right next to it, type in all the definitions. So like in this picture here, terms all in one column, definitions all in the other, and then you just will copy it over into Pear Deck's website. Okay. When it's time to run the game, you would log into peardeck.com, scroll down to, there's like a section that says present a file from Drive, and you find that activity and you can begin it from there. It'll look something like this here. All right, so now let's go ahead and jump into Pear Deck here and see what it looks like for real. So we'll do the finished product first. I'm gonna go ahead and launch my activity here. Let me find it real quick. I'm not seeing it, so I'm gonna go to my open in Drive here. Just like your other Pear Deck stuff, it's everything's saved in your Google Drive. Let's see, a question in the chat. Do you have a sign in? Yes, I'll copy that again and put that in the chat for you. I just dropped a link that goes to the slideshow, but on the second slide, I believe, has the link to the sign-in page for today. Anyway, so here's the one I'm looking for. So just to kind of clarify this, all the stuff that you do in Pear Deck, whether it's the regular slideshows that you may have done in the past, or if you're doing this vocab stuff in Pear Deck, all that stuff is saved in your Google Drive. It's saved in a folder that's automatically created called Pear Deck, and it'll be saved here. You'll notice the ones that are the vocab activities just have the little Perry, the little pear guy there. Okay, so I just made a quick little example here, like a 3 branches of government activity. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and launch this activity. If you're here live with us, I'll have you actually minimize out of Zoom and open up your browser and go to joinpd.com. So if you're used to Pear Deck, it works the same way to get into this vocab activity as you do for your regular Pear Deck things that you do. So if you're here live with us, again, go ahead and minimize out of Zoom and go to joinpd.com. And I'll do the same thing on my screen here. And joinpd.com. And then the join code is VWIKQH. VWIKQH. I'll put that in the chat as well if you need it. All right, and I'll split my screen here so you can kind of see the difference. If you're looking at my screen, if you're watching the recording, or if you hop back in Zoom, on the right side of the screen is the student's perspective. On the left side of the screen is the teacher's perspective. And again, if you're used to Pear Deck, it works in a very similar way where you give them the website to go to, joinpd.com, and then the unique code. And now we can see we have 3 workers joined in, and we'll go ahead and clock in. And each group is split up. Each group is split up into 2 parts. You're either in the day shift group or the night shift group. So we see Andrew. That's my part of the screen there. Is part of the day shift. Night shift group. Bridget and Heather. You guys are going to work together. As the teacher, you can also shuffle teams if you'd like. But with that said, let's go ahead and jump in. And basically, you're going to be given a term, and you're going to see its definition. And again, what it asks you to do is you guys will draw an example of, in my case here, the one I got was judicial branch. You may have a different one on your screen if you're following along with us here. But just like that, we'll have a blank canvas to draw on. So I'll give you guys like 30 seconds here to draw. I'll do a little drawing here myself. And I'll draw a little guy. I'm not a good drawer at all. And I'll put in a little text box. Okay, and if you're watching my screen, you see my beautiful drawing. And we say, I'm done drawing. And once you finish your drawing, then you'll be taken over to the second part of the same vocab term. Again, you're still going to see the definition, you're still going to see the term. Then you write an example of the term. So you're going to use it in a sentence, basically. Okay. You may, like, depending on the exact term or the context, you may clarify what this example would be. So like in this example, it's like write an example of the judicial branch. So in this case, I would say maybe to my students, give an example of one of the types of courts in the judicial branch, or maybe say, what are one of the checks the judicial branch has on one of the other branches of government, something like that. All right. So I'll say, Supreme Court. Supreme Court is the highest court in the judicial branch. Okay. And again, we'll click I'm done writing. Now, let me split my screen again here. We'll see a little summary after you do your drawing and after you do your sentence example. You'll have this little confirmation page where you see what you wrote and what your drawing was. And then you have the option to click that button that says, looks good, ship it. And what that does is it sends it over to the teacher, and it all kind of collects in the teacher's collects in like the teacher's queue. And once the teacher is ready, the teacher can then go through all the definitions, all these flashcards that everybody made, and kind of talk about all these terms together. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So again, I'm going over to if you're looking at my window here, I'm going to go to my left side of the screen. This is the teacher's view. And I'm going to go onto this button at the bottom that's called Quality Control. And this is where I'm able to see the drawings and the definitions that people gave me. All right, so this first one here, I see it looks like somebody holding like the scales of justice. That looks good, so I'll give that one the green check mark and stamp it and approve it. That was my beautiful drawing that we see there, so the guy yelling guilty. And another one we had, this one was executive branch, Oval Office, and guy sitting behind the desk. That looks good. And now we have our drawings done. I'll also be able to see their example sentences as well. Now, when we're ready, again, I'll expand this window so it's a little bigger here. So once we're ready, if you want to jump back to the Zoom window, if you're here live with us, when we're ready, once we reviewed all the terms that we got from our students, then we can export it to what they call GimKit Live. And what this does is it's going to save this activity here. I'll just call this 3 branches vocab. Yep, branches. And we're going to go ahead and export that. And basically what it's doing is it's creating a little flashcard, digital flashcard set for our students to use. And so let's go ahead and check it out here. And here we are. Now we see each of our definitions pop up first, and these little flashcards, just like your regular flashcards that you would make yourself. One side has the definition, one side has the term. You're reading the definition. You can look at the picture, and then you can say, "Oh, okay, that's right. That's the executive branch. This is the court systems of local, state, and federal government. Okay, right. That's the judicial branch. We see those drawings." Okay. And you'll have a whole set depending on the whole group. When you have a larger set of vocab words, you won't have repeats necessarily like this, because you can get kind of, again, as the teacher, when you're stamping those, you can decide which ones are kind of the better definitions or the better drawings or whatever it is. All right. And again, as once you make this GimKit activity here, you can just copy this link. You can go share it in your Google Classroom, save it wherever you want, give it out to students, send it out through email, however you send out links. And then students can go over to this activity whenever they want and study this way for their vocab. So this thing, it may take a full class period. It may not, depending on how many terms that you have. Something you can kind of do over time as well. So it's a fun way to practice your vocab, especially introducing new things. So again, having this little link here at the end is a real good way to give students, that little study reminder for when it's time to actually, have a vocab quiz, or if it's part of the bigger test or whatever it is. All right. Any questions on vocab factory from what we saw so far? Any questions on that stuff? All right. All right, so now let's change gears a little bit here and go to a different type of thing that we can do here with another tool, Nearpod. So if you're familiar, Nearpod is very similar to Pear Deck in that its kind of original tool was about making slideshows interactive. Now, what we can also do is use Nearpod to do matching activities and collaboration boards in a Nearpod activity. Now, the cool thing about this one in particular is you can honestly really use this tool, particularly the matching one, just as practice. It's good for like an exit ticket or after exit ticket or warm-up activity. And you can actually save all the data that you get from here, so you can actually see how individual students responded. All right. So you can, of course, practice or assess vocab before, during, or after slideshows, or completely by itself. It does not have to be attached to your direct instruction type stuff. Matching activities allow you to create matching games with terms, definitions, and images, and you can mix and match. The collaboration boards allow students to see each other's responses in one shared space, only accessible during the class time. So if you have used Padlet before, that's really nice. It's the same exact idea. It's a collaborate board where students can go put in pictures and make comments and do whatever, but those would be accessible at any time. As soon as you give them the link, they'd be able to go in and jump in there and start talking. If you do it through Nearpod here, if you do it this way, students would only be able to come in during class time while you have the Nearpod session up and running, provided that you're running Nearpod as a live session. As a teacher, you can review how each individual student responds. That's another nice thing about doing vocab practice, or again, even assessment in this way. All right, so let's go ahead and look at some examples here. So I'll give you guys another activity to come into here. I'm going to do a little, I just made a quick little activity here in Nearpod. So what I'll have you guys do, again, if you're here live with us, go ahead and minimize out of the Zoom window again, open up your browser and go to join.nearpod.com. I'll do the same thing on my screen again here. Again, it was join.nearpod.com. join.nearpod.com, and then you put in the code SREN and the number 8. SREN and the number 8. And you'll notice when you come in here for Nearpod, it'll bring up this little name pop-up thing. Of course, that make some teachers nervous. Well, students aren't actually logging in, or it might be a good thing. The way I kind of treat it is, well, you always have students just write their name on a piece of paper. Is kind of the same concept here. If you don't write your name on your real name on here, I'm not going to be able to tell who says what, and you're getting a 0 for this activity. So that's just kind of the way it would work. All right, so then the student will put in their name. And just like before, our students would be just kind of piling into the class. Let's see how many students we have here. All right, we got our 3 in here. So we got Andrew, that's my fake dummy student here, Bridget and Heather, awesome. And we'll go ahead and launch. Again, I'll still split my screen here if you're watching the recording or if you're watching my screen. And again, we'll go ahead and get rolling. So let's go ahead and dive in. So what you'll see come up on your screen, and if you're watching the recording on the right side of my screen here, is you'll see a bunch of terms and definitions. And what we have here is a perfect example of a way to do practice vocabulary. I think this is a really good thing for like a warm-up activity or an exit ticket as well. So for these ones, just try to run through real quick. I'll give you guys just like a 30 seconds or so to just kind of run through as quick as you can to do some matching here. I'll do my best here. These are science terms that I that I wouldn't grab. I was not a science teacher. I was a social studies teacher, but I try to mix up the subject areas that I give examples for. Copy that. All right, and of course, if you're watching the recording, if you're back in the Zoom window, on the left side of the screen again, it's the teacher's perspective, and now we see that everybody's all done. We have 10 out of 10 matches, and you can see how many tries each person did to get there. All right, and the cool thing too, this is a total side note here, but you can also decide to hide student names. So if you wanted students to remain anonymous, but you can still keep track of if everybody's done or not, you can show or hide student names down there at the bottom. All right, and our other type of activity here is the collaboration board. Now, if you're noticing back on my screen real quick, pop-up comes up on the teacher side for collaboration boards asking, would you like to approve student comments before they're posted, so the teacher can kind of work as a filter. For this one, I'll just say no, just to save time. So you guys can freely write an example here. So this one's an example of a simile. So of course, if this was an English class and we're talking about similes, you can start to give out examples here. All right, so of course, with these things, I'll just write in an example. Okay. And so again, if you hop back to my screen again, if you're live with us, hop back to the Zoom window again. And of course, on the right side of the screen is the student's perspective. On the left side of the screen is the teacher's. And so again, as the teacher, I can decide what everybody sees. Again, I can hide or show student names. But the really nice thing about this activity here, about using Nearpod rather, for this whole thing, is all this stuff is saved. So if I'm going to use this as an actual, assessment here to see, can students actually give an example of a simile, I can actually record all this data. All this data is still going to be here for me at the end. So I'm going to close out of this session here, and I just want to show you something real quick. So I'm going to close out. If you want to head back to the Zoom window, if you're not already, go ahead and hop back into Zoom. And so I just closed out of that session. And the cool thing about doing an activity this way through Nearpod is you get reports. So you'll have all that information that you gathered just from that little vocab practice. And we can open it up. And we can see exactly how everybody responded. So if I want to go back and see, exactly how well Andrew did, I can see that. Okay, so I can go and see how he did on these different activities. All right, so if I go over to the matching pairs one here, I can see exactly how many matches each person got, how many tries they got, and whether or not they completed it. And then the same thing for the collaborate board. I can go in and look at how everybody did again, just as if it was live, even though the students are no longer no longer have access to this collaborate board anymore. Now I can see exactly how everybody did. So Heather did a good job. She did a simile. Bridget, oh no, you shortchanged. No points for you today. I'm just kidding. And then Andrew, okay, he did one kind of back. Aren't polar bear reports actually not white? Aren't they actually like yellow or something? I don't know. Anyway, so then you can divvy out your points this way. So you're still practicing this key vocab word here, simile, and they're actually providing examples. And of course, as you may have noticed, students could also put in pictures. That was another button that was there when students, from the student perspective, when they were doing that collaborate activity, you could also have them put in pictures, and they can make multiple posts. It can be a huge collaboration board. Okay. If you want to learn more about Nearpod, if that kind of piqued your interest in something you wanted to check out, you can check this out. I put together an interactive training. The link for it here is on slide number 13. So if you want to check that out, feel free to check that out. And let's go ahead and change gears again. And oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to show how to actually make those things. I almost caught myself there. So hang on one second. Let's go back to Nearpod real quick. I want to show you how to actually make those matching activities and collaborate boards. Let me show you how to make those real quick. Duh. So once you create a Nearpod account, if you haven't made one before, they're free to make. There's a free and a paid version. There's still a lot of good stuff you can do with the free version of Nearpod. Let's go ahead and go under the create button, and then we go into lessons. And I'll just show you how to put together a matching pairs activity and a collaborate board. Those are the two main types of activities that you can do for really good for vocab practice. There's other types of interactive slides. There's lots of different types of interactive slides in here. You can do just good old-fashioned like quizzes, and you can do like memory tests and fill in the blanks. There's a lot of different choices in here. I just kind of picked matching and the collaborate board as kind of the two top tools for practicing and assessing vocab. But anyway, so let's do a matching pairs activity. And once you're in here, you can add in instructions if you want. You don't have to. And then you simply click on add pair at the bottom here, and then you start adding in pairs. They can be pictures mixed with other pictures. They can be words mixed with pictures, or they can just be all words. So you can do a mix and match of both. And notice there's even a little formulas button down here. So you can even add in some extra symbols and things like that. All right. So, if I did, George Washington as an example here. And on this side, maybe I want to, let me clear that off. I'll do add an image, and I'll do George Washington. And we'll drop in a picture. Oh, that picture was too big. Okay, we can say done. And you can make as many pairs as you'd like. Again, you can match terms with definitions. Okay, you can also match terms with terms, text with text, pictures with pictures, like I said before. Of course, you can just keep on adding them over and over again. You don't have to jump out every time. Okay, but that's pretty much what there is to it. It's really, really easy to do. Down at the bottom, you can do a preview to see what it looks like. And of course, you can match them together pretty easily, just like so. All right. And then when you're done, just click save at the bottom. That'll save that activity. And then let's do another one here. We'll do add slide again. Go under activities at the top here. And then for this one, we'll do a collaborate board. And pretty much enter in whatever topic that you like. You can also add a little topic picture of whatever thing that you want. Add in a topic, add in any other description that you like. I'll just use the same example I did before. Give an example of a simile. Okay, and there's a few just like different style choices that you can do. Purely cosmetic, not a big deal either way. Then just click save. And then students, of course, will be able to go into that collaborate board just like we saw earlier. Okay, and the whole thing you can preview. And once it loads for me, there we go. We'll see our activity. So of course, if you get one wrong, of course, that's what it'll look like. You can fly through pretty quick. And we'll just go over to the collaborate board. So even in this preview, you don't have to like create a student account or anything. You can do a full preview, exactly what students will see. Okay. All right. All right. Now, any questions on Nearpod before we switch over to talking about quizzes? Any questions on anything that we covered so far? Heather says she really likes vocab in Nearpod. Awesome. Yeah, honestly, like Nearpod is like one of my favorite things, just like ever, honestly. Yeah, the nice thing about it is you can use it as just kind of an informal practice thing, or as an actual real deal. I'm taking points for this type of thing, right? All right. So now let's change gears for real now and talk about quizzes for a little bit. This one we're not going to go as deep into, just for the sake of time. But for quizzes, it has a huge library of pre-made activities from other teachers, all free to use and edit. So if you find something that you like, it has like some parts that you don't need, you can get rid of it or you can change them. Teachers can easily find vocab quizzes that match their needs, or at least most of their needs. Again, you can edit them to make them match for what you want. And there's seriously a gigantic library in there. And again, this is really good for warm-up activities, exit tickets, or real deal vocab quizzes. When you find or make a quiz in quizzes, you can begin live as a group, or just like we did for Nearpod and Pear Deck here. You can do that stuff live as a group, or assign it as homework for students to do independently. You have this. You'll see this button come up under your quiz once you're finished making it. You can either do live, or you can assign it as homework, and you can even set a due date for it as well. And of course, this thing auto grades. It gives you a full report, just like we saw over in Nearpod, so you can see how each individual student did. Now, if you want to do kind of a more formal like vocab test, you want to really do an assessment of do students know these vocab terms. If you do classic live quiz, going back a slide, though this one, the start a live quiz, when you click on that, there's an option for classic live quiz. You have an option to set the quiz to what's called test mode. In here, students are required to sign in, so they have to sign in with their school accounts, and they can be limited to only one attempt. You can set more attempts if you like, but you can limit them to only one attempt. And they do not see the answers during or after the quiz. So it's kind of like almost the same idea as doing like a vocab test in a Google form, but there's less setup, I guess, especially if you find one that's kind of pre-made for you. Like I said before, you'll have all these reports available to you. All those results from students are going to be accessible under that reports section. This will include how each student did overall. It'll show each question's response distribution, meaning if you have like a multiple choice question, you'll see what percentage of students chose A, which percentage of students chose B, which percentage of students chose C, so on and so forth. Okay, all that info it will be there for you. Okay, now I want to show this quick little video here. I try to trim it down to the parts that we just need here. It's from Ditch That Textbook from Matt Miller. He always has lots of good stuff. If you've never heard of Ditch That Textbook, you're missing out. So he always has lots of good technology stuff for teaching, as well as like tips and things like this. But in this video here, I'll show you guys this video. He goes over an excellent method for teaching vocabulary mastery with quizzes as his tool for helping that. All right, so I'm going to set this Zoom call here for to watch this video clip. Watch it. It's about I think like 6 or 7 minutes long, and then we'll come back together.
the Fast and the Curious Edu protocol works. On Monday, this is kind of like a weekly repetitive thing. On Monday, we start off with some new vocabulary words, some new concepts that they need to learn, and we give them some questions. Let's say there's 15 vocabulary words, and we ask them those questions on quizzes. So there they are, there's that first icon, we ask them the questions. So here's an example. A lot of times whenever I present this with teachers, I think, what can I teach them that they don't know? And the thing that I came up with was Polish. It's something that a lot of the teachers that I work with don't know. I can use it as content to kind of put them in the place of the student. And so I ask them all of these Polish questions, and I do it through quizzes. And so some of them, they get the answers correct. A lot of them, they get the answers wrong. And so once we've gone through those first questions, I basically just throw those Polish questions at the teachers. And so if you were using this in the classroom, you'd do the same thing. You just kind of lay these new vocabulary terms onto the students, and we see how much of it they actually know. Once they're done, we use that opportunity to take a look at the data and give them some feedback. Because the great thing about it is once they're done with those questions, like the moment they finish up, we have this golden frame of time, this golden opportunity to give students feedback in the moment when they're still sort of like mentally connected to it. You know, we take homework assignments and we grade them and we hand them back the next day, and kids throw them in the trash can a lot of times because they're so disconnected from when they did it. But now they've just done it. This is the perfect time to give feedback. So anything that they've struggled with, we give them a little mini lesson about it. Anything that we need to reteach, we can go ahead and do that. So that's what we do there. So we're digging into all of the questions that the student struggled with. We've got the data right here, and we're able to give them what they need. It's kind of like differentiating down to the class by looking at the data and saying, what do they really need the most instruction on, and giving it to them right there in the moment. And then once they're done with that, we take the quizzes game again. So we just did it. We just told them what they need to be able to get it right the next time, and then we take the quizzes game again. Whenever I do this with teachers, sometimes once we've taken this quiz on Polish words, and I give them some mnemonic devices so that they can remember those words, sometimes they look at it and they go, yeah, but do we have to take it again right now? We know all the answers now. Is it really that useful? And I say, yes, absolutely, we need to take it again right now. Because if I give you all of these strategies and all these mnemonic devices and everything, and I say, hey, just remember that next time you take this, it's going to totally just drop out of your memory. But if you can put those strategies into practice right away, right now, even if you know all the answers, that's pretty important. It locks it in. So that's what we do on Monday with this Fast and the Curious Edu protocol. We repeat that process again on Tuesday. Take a quizzes game, do the reteach or the mini lesson for everything that students struggled with. Now on Tuesday, you can either continue to ask all of those same questions, or if students showed mastery of certain questions, you can drop those off and only ask them the questions that they struggled on. So either way, this totally works. We give them the feedback in the moment, which so beats writing a whole bunch of comments onto the student's work and handing it back to them the next day, because that's kind of pointless if they're not going to look at it. But if you can give it to them in the moment, that's so much more useful. Have them take it again so that they lock those strategies into their memory. On Wednesdays, this is getting kind of repetitive here, we do the same thing. We take that quizzes game, either with the ones that they're still struggling with or with everything. Reteach, give them a little mini lesson on the stuff that they really need, take it again. Now's where it gets interesting. We go to Thursday. We take that quiz one more time on quizzes, and we see how all of the students perform across the board. You ready for this? If the entire class performs at a level of 95%, if they're able to get 95% of the questions right across the board as the class, we give them an A for that assignment in the grade book, and we move on. Move on to something else. And And so once we've shown mastery of these new vocabulary words, instead of taking the vocab quiz on Friday, what do we do on Friday? Something great. You know, if you've always wondered, how do I fit in Genius Hour? You know, the whole 20% time where students pursue something that they're passionate about for 20% of class. Boom, there it is right there. If there's something that you've just never felt like you had time for that is important, boom, there you go on Friday, that's it. Now, the idea of giving students an A on that assignment and moving on, if they all got 95% of it, it feels a little strange at first to teachers. But if we think about it, what are we trying to accomplish here? We're trying to have students show mastery of those new words. And if they're able to do that through some repetitions in class, and then they're able to show that mastery just as well as they could on a homework assignment, then why wouldn't we just go ahead and give, if everybody's shown mastery of it, why wouldn't we just put that in the grade book and move on? And so what if we do that? You know, what are the benefits of it? Well, first of all, it's efficient practice. It means that you know students are in class doing that practice. You don't have to wonder, did they copy those questions from somebody else? Did they actually do it? How much time did they spend doing it? It also frees you up to do what's important in class. You've got that extra day. So if you're able to accomplish all of that with the Fast and the Curious protocol, Edu protocol, and you're able to get those vocabulary words or get those new concepts in 4 days, and then you free up time on Friday, now you've got time to do what's important. But finally, it also gives you time to spend planning for what's important, because now you don't have to use all of that time to grade homework. So imagine that. Imagine if you could take those stacks of homework, those stacks of all of that repetitious worksheet-based homework, and you didn't have to grade it. You didn't have to put it in, take the time putting it in the grade book. You put all of that aside because Quizzes does the grading for you. You put it in the grade book, and now you don't have to spend all of that time. Now what are you going to do with that planning time? You know, what is it that you wish you had more time to investigate? What is it that you wish you had more time to set up for the kids? And if you have that more time, now we're putting it towards what's important and what's getting results, that time in class with student. So
All right, did that come through okay? Were you guys able to see and hear the video okay? Yeah, all right, cool. All right, so of course in that video, I think he does a really good job of explaining this kind of unique method for teaching vocab that's kind of a little outside the box, and I think it's a really good idea. So maybe consider implementing this this process here and see how it works. So let's take a quick peek over in Quizzes now. And again, Quizzes is another free tool to use. This one, again, just like Pear Deck and Nearpod, like we saw earlier, there's a free version and a paid version, but you can still have a ton of good stuff with the free version. So of course, when you come in here, again, you can really just search for whatever you want. In here, there's, like I said, this library in this site is gigantic. So chances are you're going to find pretty much whatever you need. You know, so if we're working, could somebody give me a topic here, just like something that you're working on, or give me a topic so I can just search for something in here, just so we can see if we can find anything kind of good in here. Somebody give me a topic I can search for in here. Constitution. Okay, perfect. And I'll even put vocab after it. There we go. Perfect. First thing that came up, again, all this is just publicly available here. So the first one here, let's just take a look. There's 16 questions in this one. Let's see. We have what are taxes? What's the main function of the judicial branch, legislative, executive branch, whose membership is based on population, all this good stuff. So this looks pretty good. If I want to make any changes to it, so if I maybe want to add some more vocab terms to this, or if I want to take some out, I can go to copy and edit up here in the top. and it's going to add this to my own library. So now I'm the owner of this activity, and I can come in here and edit each question. I can add more questions. So if I want to add a new one, I can come up here. You can see the different types of questions that you can do. So you can do a multiple choice, checkbox questions, which lets you select multiple answers. You can do fill in the blanks, polls, or open-ended questions. You can even do a slide, which is just kind of like a non-interactive slide, like in a regular PowerPoint. So you can add in lots of different types of questions in here. Or again, you can change each of these questions up if you don't like, the definition that this person gave in here. You can change it up to whatever you like. Okay. Each question you can also change the time limit for as well, as short as 5 seconds to as long as 15 minutes per question. So you can change all that stuff up to whatever you like. All right, and then once we're done, we just click done up in the top right. And now this activity is here and it's available for us. And here's these two buttons I was alluding to earlier. So start a live quiz or assign as homework. So again, if you're doing this live in class, you can do live classic mode, and you can do either teams, make it kind of a fun game activity. You can do classic where each student does their own activity at their own pace, or you can do the test like I was talking about earlier. All right. We don't have enough time to go into a full demo of that one there. We only have about 10 minutes left here, so we'll just kind of leave it there for that point. But like I mentioned earlier, you can also assign this as homework. So if you want to just have a vocab quiz as homework, you can also do it this way. And if you look at it as which one would either be more useful for students or easier for me as the teacher? Do I do the traditional vocab activity where I tell students, okay, everybody, it's your job to write on a notebook paper each term and definition from chapter 7 and get it into me by Monday? That, or do you do it this way where it's the same terms and definitions, but it's their job to answer through this? A little bit easier for students, might be easier for you because it auto grades for you. You can see who turns it in on time and all this stuff here. So again, you can still set a deadline. These classes that you can put into quizzes here, you can also import them over from Google Classroom as well. So if you have a whole roster of students, it brings that whole roster on over into quizzes, so you can have all those same students. And again, auto grading is the best thing in the world. So of course that can save you a whole bunch of time, while it's still essentially the same activity as what the students were doing originally if you did the traditional, just write down the terms and definitions type activity. And again, if you do the thing that Matt Miller was talking about, you go into your activities, you can run these things over and over again as many times as you like. You just start a live quiz, launch into classic. You can fiddle with all these settings. There's a bunch of different choices in here. The default settings are fine the way they are, and you just hit continue, and we're in. Students join in the exact same way that we saw earlier, where they'll go to a website. In this case, it's joinmyquiz.com. They put in the code. They'll be unique every time, and all that stuff is going to be available there for you. Okay. And again, all that information that you gather is going to be under this reports tab at the bottom. So you'll be able to see how each person did. You can see all this information. Okay. And again, you can run it the same way that Matt Miller was talking about. Beginning of class, you launch them right in, even before you did your actual teaching it. It's just a pre-quiz at that point. Rattle off those vocab terms, go into your actual normal lesson, and at the end, your exit ticket is those same vocab terms again. And you can just hammer those down every day for the first few days. And then if, again, the class shows 95% mastery, you'll have that data under your reports tab. Everybody gets full credit or gets marked as an A for that, and you move on. All right. All right. Any questions on anything so far? We only have a few minutes left, so we'll go kind of through our last little bits quick, but we'll kind of run through here. Any other questions here on anything that we covered so far? Doing good? All right. Let's see. Bridget says Nearpod can only be done live. Correct? No, you can do student paste with Nearpod. So here, let me hop back here real quick. That's a good question. So Nearpod, you can also do student paste mode. So when you create an activity, let me just save changes on that one. Go away. Here we go. All right, so here's my this vocab practice thing over here on the right side. You can also do student paste, where it's the same idea. I'll just say continue. That's fine. And it's the same idea that you get them into the class the same way, where you just tell them go to join.nearpod.com, put in this code, and you can go in. You can set a due date for this stuff as well, an open and close date. And you can also, I love this little button here, require students' responses and prevent skipping. So they have to answer every question and they cannot jump ahead. All right. So you have a lot of cool stuff that you can do in there. Maybe I'll apply those changes. And you have all these shareable links here. So if you want to do an email, a regular link, you can embed it, put it right over into Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, whatever you want. So yes, students can do student paste mode for Nearpod and for quizzes. Awesome. All right, so we only have a couple minutes left, so I'll just kind of go quick here through graphic organizers, through Google Slides. This is kind of more traditional route, kind of just your classic graphic organizers, but you can digitize them in Google Slides. And again, this is more better for your traditional assignments, better for your regular homework, more for assessment, less for practice, I would say. Again, for more traditional vocab practice, graphic organizers can be used digitally to save time and space. Graphic organizers like the Frayer model in particular are perfect for practicing or assessing vocab. Here on slide 19, here's a video. It's only a couple minutes long that shows you how to easily make a digital Frayer model in Google Slides. And of course, you can use it for lots of different examples. And then, of course, you would just distribute that activity through Google Classroom or your LMS, and then you let students go in and do that activity. All right, so down at the bottom right of this screen here, this is just an example of a simple Frayer model where there is a term in the middle, and then you have kind of the spokes that kind of go around, the four squares that go around the term. You may have definitions, characteristics, examples, non-examples. You may have like synonyms or antonyms. You may have a spot for them to draw a picture of an example of the term, whatever it is. And so, of course, here's a couple of examples here for you guys. So this Spanish vocab one. This one's kind of the same idea. Oh, that was the wrong one. That just loads up for me here. So this one is kind of this one's not really a Frayer model. It's just kind of a simple graphic organizer for a Spanish class where the teacher gave them their term, they put it into Spanish and kind of give an example and give a picture. All right, so they get their Spanish term, they put it into English rather, and then they put it into their own sentence and then put in a picture. Okay, kind of the same concept as a Frayer model, just organized a little bit differently. And again, this is very simple, put right into Google Slides. And here's one for Frayer model. And this one's kind of a little bit of like kind of a twist on the Frayer model. It's kind of this, again, the same idea. You have your actual term, you have your synonyms, you have highlight sentence with a term in it, what part of speech it is, as well as a picture. Okay, so just a couple of examples. If you have like a PDF file and want to digitize it, like if you have graphic organizers that you've been using forever, and you want to digitize it, this video on slide 20 here will show you how to digitize those, so you can put them into like Google Slides. You can also use another tool out there called teachermade.com. That one's really awesome as well for making like digital PDFs. So and the nice thing about that site in particular is that That one also features auto grading as well. So really cool. I also put together a tutorial of how to use teachermade.com. So if you want to check all that stuff out, again, all those links are on slide number 20 for you. All right, and then just a few others just as we wrap up here. Plickers is another good one. You can ask any multiple choice or true false question. You have students answer with these little paper cards that you scan with your smartphone. That one's really good if you don't have a one-to-one classroom. Quizlet, of course, that one's super popular. There's lots of different vocab practice games, lots of pre-made materials on there. Wordle is kind of another fun one that lets you create word clouds pretty easily. Word Hippo is another good resource for students in particular. You can easily find like definitions, synonyms, antonyms, rhymes, example sentences for a lot of terms out there. And of course, if there's any others, I'd love to hear about them. Before we wrap up here, are there any other tools that you guys have used, or any kind of other uses for the stuff that we've seen today? Anything else that you'd like to share? Any techniques? Anything coming to mind? And Bridget says it's all new to me. All right. All right, so it's just at 4 o'clock here. So there's our to-do list. So we talked about Pear Deck, Vocab Factory, Nearpod matching and collab boards, a little bit in quizzes, a little quickly through graphic organizers in Google Slides, and we just kind of listed off a few more in there. Heather also says, I think I've been using, all these are great. All our school has been using Nearpod and quizzes. Awesome. All right. So just to wrap up here, if you were interested in earning graduate credit for this session, here's all that info here on slide number 23. Here's our upcoming sessions coming up over the next few weeks. So if you're interested in any of the other live sessions coming up, you can check all those out. Those are all free to come to. And with that said, that'll bring us down to the end. Of course, if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out. Again, you can get me by email at dneeson@neonet.org. If you were here live with us and you didn't sign in, the sign in button there is on slide number 25. If you're watching this as a recording, don't worry about it. There's also a quick survey on the last slide as well. And again, you can get to the slideshow from today at bit.ly/NEO lowercase vocab, and that will get you the whole slideshow from today. But with that said, if you have any more questions, let me know, and I'll go ahead and end out this session. Thanks so much for coming, and for the people watching this recording, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.